Hi, I'm Kelly at Book and Paper Arts, and today I have yet another video about how to turn glossy magazine pages and coffee table book papers into something else altogether. It is easy, it is inexpensive, and it is so fun. We started out 2 videos ago by looking at how to degloss these shiny papers using sandpaper or something scrapey. Then it's got patina, it's got age, it's got texture. You've also taken off that gloss that would repel color. So now you can go back in and do some overpainting. That's what we're going to do today, overpainting. So we're going to look at using gouache and acrylics, a combination of the two, watercolor, and some gesso and soft pastel for overpainting. So please join me. And if you like journal arts, altered books, and vintage books, paper, and other ephemera, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and be sure and turn on the notifications, and you will have more of them in your life. Let's go alter some paper. Today's video is not going to have a lot of fiddly steps or instruction because the tutorial is overpainting, which means that the instruction is this. You paint over. You paint over your distressed magazine papers and coffee table book pages. I am going to, however, be going through a variety of paints and water solubles, lots of liquid media to show you how they react and work in these distressed images and give you some ideas. The first thing you need is a distressed magazine page or coffee table book page. I'm not going to do that whole technique today because if you go 2 videos back, I have a video very detailed about how you can use a sanding block, sandpaper, or other scrubby things to take the gloss off of your shiny papers and age them, and where to go from there. Here, so I'm assuming you have some distressed papers that you're thinking about. This is one where I've actually started it so I could show you some before and after. This was an art textbook from the 70s. I got secondhand for £1. And I sanded back the shininess. And that already sort of looks pretty cool. But then what I did was I went in with some watercolor. A watercolor wash. This is very light, not very strong paint at all. And I added it to my sanded print so that now it actually looks like a hand-tinted photograph, a mezzotint, which was a popular style in the 1800s before color photography was invented. So let's have a look at how that goes down. These colors may not mix up perfectly since I started this a couple of days ago, but that's okay. This is not fine art. It's fun making stuff to play with. This is a wash of a sort of a terracotta color. I am not hitting all the fine details in this. This was an altarpiece that was very fiddly, and I would lose my mind. I'm just picking up, kind of highlighting some of the bits here. See, that would have been gold, so I just settled for yellow. And if this paper was not deglossed, not sanded and deglossed, it would not be taking this color. The glossiness would repel a watery paint. But now it's sitting on top a little bit, but mostly being absorbed. And you can see that this is just it's changing it now, making it pretty as well as mysterious. You could use this for a card or a background in any kind of journal or whatever mixed media work you like to do. I have an oversized art journal here that I play with sometimes, and I think this would be, since it's a larger size, this would be a good addition to an art journal page like this. And now that I've got this beautiful, mysterious background, I could add some other elements. Mr. Bird, he would look really good. Here's another bird, and this is the pink colors are picking up the very light pink colors here. So you could use it for the beginning of a much more layered piece and go to town. Speaking of layers, look what happens when I add some highlighting. This is a Derwent Ink Tints stick, but you could use a watercolor pencil or just any colored pencil. Or you could use a soft chalk pastel. You know how much I love pastels. So I'm just going along that line and adding a little bit of oomph, a little bit of sharpness. It doesn't need it. It's just a different look. And so you can go in and work with other color pieces to make your page start to pop. I then went in with this yellow soft chalk pastel. It's kind of a gold color. Golden, not a bright lemon yellow, and smudged it a lot. And just thought I'd show you how that is looking, where I've added the smudgy highlights. If the watercolor wash gave us a very light, forgiving look, like a tint, let's look at a technique that's going to give us a more abstract, wild look. This is Hour Before. We have this lady with, she's from a magazine, and I sanded off the gloss there. And instead of watercolor, I'm using gouache. It's not as heavy as an acrylic, and it is water-based, so I can thin it out. While it is heavier than a watercolor, it's still going to be a lot more opaque. And so I've mixed up this kind of a peachy tone with, let's see, with a kind of a gold ochre and some white, and then I've thinned it out with some water. And now I'm just going to go in and overpaint some of the details here. Again, I am not a portrait painter, so I'm not worried about trying to get this exact or balanced. I'm just overpainting with some color for fun. And you can even exaggerate it. I'm going to go back in and work on her face now. Now let's give her some beads. I've added some exaggerated cheeks there. for fun. I kind of like that look. You know, another look that I love are big over-the-top headpieces. So why don't we do something with this demure turban and Carmen Miranda it and make it great. I'm going to give her a bracelet. And you know what? I'm just going to go mad and give her a headband, because that's also a look. So now you've just taken this piece that was okay, just from a magazine, and now you've turned it into pop art, and it is a lot of look that you can now play with in your work. Yeah, it is a lot of look. But that's the whole point if you're overpainting with the gouache, with the acrylics, with a stronger, more robust color, is you can just exaggerate and really, really turn it into your own. In this technique, we're going to stay with the exaggeration, but keep it monochromatic. Again, this was a black and white portrait from a coffee table book, and I've sanded it back. So this is our before. I'm going to go around all of the edges that I can still see with a water-soluble graphite pencil. This is water-soluble means that it goes down like a pencil, and when it gets wet, it turns into an ink. Mine is Caran d'Ache, but lots of people make them. I have a 3B, which has a softer lead, which I think is going to help a lot here. So I'm just going to go around. These are not precise lines. They're kind of messy because we're going to activate them anyway, and they're going to change. So I'm just going to go all around and draw around him. I've gone around all the edges, and I've even added a little bit of detail to his face, but not much because, quite frankly, I'm intimidated by faces, and I bet I'm not the only one. Traditionally, you would activate this with water, and like as I said, you can see this is now turning into quite the ink wash. But I have a thing about activating my water solubles in my art journals using gesso. So if you'd like to use the water, by all means, but I am going to pull mine out with the gesso. And it's extremely messy. And it's starting to look chalk-like. While this may not be everybody's cup of tea, the point is that I took this black and white, shiny 1970s portrait of the Doge, and I've turned it into a completely different kind of portrait. And so think about this technique. You could use it with florals, botanicals, with buildings, and still get some really striking effects. I tried this with intense water solubles, and they did not take on this paper. So the ones that work the best are the ones that are graphite based, like this. Derwent also makes some graphite based colored sticks. And of course, chalk pastel. Now that there's some gesso down on this, it's going to be even more forgiving if I want to add in some more messy color using these soft chalk pastels. And so again, we've got this portrait that's just turning into a completely different kind of thing. And I don't want to add a lot of color. This is not that, but you could just, what you're doing is just really leaning into that messy, abstract, forgiving style of making a portrait. And you could do a lot with that. Here are some I did off camera. This is from a National Geographic. And that magazine is such a wealth of treasure for this project. Great photography, and you can find them in thrift stores and library book sales, really cheap. This is the before, where of some old ladies from 1920 eating ice cream. And this is the after, where I sanded it back and then went in and just made a watercolor tint to their outfits, a little bit to their skin. I have not gone in to add their faces back. I'm going to leave this a little bit vague, like as if it was a photo that had stayed out in the sun too long. So it's a combination of different techniques, as is this. This guy is from a bird watching magazine that I got for, I think, 30 cents at a thrift store. And this is also a combination of techniques because I've sanded it back and then I've added in the watercolor wash for a tint. But when I got to the bird himself, I exaggerated, even though it's using the soft color, I exaggerated the look. So it's now looking like a bird in a children's picture book. Also, there's something poignant about him, and I'm not sure why. Here is, these roses were from a coffee table book of roses, and they were pretty static, very stylized, formal. So when I sanded these back and when I overpainted here, I used a combination of a gouache and a watercolor. So it's a little bit more formidable than just the tint. And I've exaggerated the lines of where the petals are. So now it has sort of a semi-abstract look. Then I rough tore it to give it even more messiness. And again, I think this would make a terrific start for an art journal page like this. Or what you will. I have one last piece. This is also from a National Geographic magazine, and I sanded it back and just went over all these arches in contrasting terracotta colors. And now it's got a lot of mystery and is going to be a great beginning to an altered book page or an art journal page. That is it. If you have any... Actually, that looks kind of good, doesn't it? Look. Give her a little bit of a shawl. I love that. If you have any questions, any feedback, or any ideas of your own for using overpainting in your works, let us know. Put that in the comments below. We can all read it and be the better for it. Until later, happy making.